Hello, I'm Daniela, and welcome to Prompt 8 in the Slow Stitching Workshop, Stitch the Season 2022. Today's prompt is a really fun one, and it's really far-reaching. There's so many possibilities for you. The prompt is going to be a structure or a building. Now, think about something with a Christmas flair for this one. So you can do a gingerbread house, or you can do a church or a chapel, or you can do your own home. Or you can do something a little more interesting, and you do an igloo or something along those lines. You can do a North Pole village. You can do an old-fashioned village. Oh, I could keep going on and on. The idea is you want to capture the essence of some kind of structure that at Christmas time is meaningful. You can make it whimsical, or you can make it heartfelt, or anywhere in between. So let's get started. So for my sample book here, I created a church as my Christmas structure, my building. And I just thought that was so cute to have not only the cross, but the little wreath on the door, just something significant of the windows of a church. And then I used plaid fabric just to brighten it up, so it's still a bit whimsical. For today's prompt, I wanted to do something just a little bit different, and there were really quite a few possibilities. So I decided I was going to do a gingerbread house. And again, I start with my book and try and figure out exactly where I want to place it. And I think I'm going to place it right here, just across from the cloche prompt over here. So I think that'll be a great place for it. Now I want to do the gingerbread house, so I went through my stash and I came up with some fabric for the gingerbread, and then just some festive fabric. And I think I'm going to use this black fabric as my background. So I'll start with that. I'll attach most of it to the background, and then I'll add my fabric pieces. Now, one of the reasons I really like this prompt is because I get to use all these neat trims and ribbons and just some little accessories. I have some beads here in the shape of little peppermints. I have a larger bead in the shape of a peppermint, which I might use. But I'm also thinking of wrapping that wreath, and I'll just show you how I do it. I've done it in previous videos, but this is a fun way to add that texture. This is a little bulky and big, but it's still fun. And I had this little gingerbread, it's a little sticker, still have the paper on the background made of felt. I may or may not use this as well. So this is where the fun begins. I'll have to set aside my accessories for now, and I'll get started with creating that page. So I have the background of my page, and now I want to actually cut my shapes to make my gingerbread house. I'm going to make it simple. I'm going to make it just square with a triangle top. Maybe I'll add a chimney as well. So I'll just kind of eyeball the size that I want to make. Just like that. That looks about half the size I want. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I'll just do my trick where I fold it in half so I can get my symmetrical shape. And I'll make it a little bigger than I expect, because I can always trim it down. So there I have my little gingerbread house. I think I want to make a little chimney to that, so I'll just cut a piece of that fabric. Cut that down. And just tuck it in place. So it's a very simple design. Now before I start embellishing, which I cannot wait to start doing, I want to create maybe a door with this red fabric. So I'll cut the height of that door that I want, and then I want it to be kind of a rounded door, like a little archway. And I'll just play around until I get the size that I want. It's a little thicker than I want, so I'll just trim it down. So that's coming along quite nicely. Now I purposely made my house tall because I know I want to add all this trim into it. And I'm going to add the trim in a bit. But first I want to wrap that little washer. So I'm going to just pin everything in place here, my existing fabric, and then off camera I'll just stitch it down, top stitch, to hold it in place. But before I do that, I just want to make that wrapped washer, just because I feel like that's a really important part of my piece here. It's another textile element, and it's a wreath form, which can be used on a lot of buildings or structures if you want. You can hang them in windows, etc. So to wrap my wreath, I have this red and white twine, and I just have a large plastic tapestry needle that was used from like a cross-stitch kit or something like this that I saved. So I'll just feed this through because it's nice thick twine. Once I have it securely through, I'm just going to start wrapping my wreath. Now you can wrap it, just continuing to wrap it all the way around, just in a simple wrap, or you can wrap one loop and then go back through it. Make my loop, at the end go back through, and continue this all the way around, and it'll make a bulky little wreath. Because the twine itself is bulky, as well as this little additional knot at the end. So I'll continue this all the way around. And I purposely left a little tail here so that I could knot it off at the end. So then once I put my last stitch in, and I like to make this really snug, so if anything, I do a little more stitching than less. Then I can just move this around, and I have my two ends. So I'll just make one knot at the end. If the thread is particularly slippery, I might add a dab of glue or a second knot. I think I'll just do a second knot on this one, although it's not very slippery. And then I can just play around, covering that washer thoroughly. And then from there I'll clip this. And just clip the edge. So that's how I make my little wrapped wreath. And then I can just stitch it in place with a couching stitch, and you won't even see those stitches. So I'm just going to stitch all the way around this piece to hold it down into place, and I'll stitch around the door. Now I want to make two windows here, so I'll sketch those out and show you how that looks. So now I've stitched down and held my house in place. My little gingerbread house is coming along. I have the door, and I sketched in some windows. Before I start the really fun task of embellishing, I just need to do a back stitch and outline the shape of these windows. And I actually think I'm going to make a little window panes as well. So I'll just start over here on one window and just make that back stitch. This is just embroidery floss in a brown shade because I want it to really stand out. I'm going to make my major colors just the red, white, green, and maybe some black for the embellishing because I want to stick to that color scheme for my journal. And I'll just continue all the way around here, creating that window. I'll do it on this one and this one. And then we can start the embellishing. So now I've stitched my windows in place and I can really start embellishing now. And this is where it gets really fun. I have some of this white rickrack here, this trim, and I want to use this reminiscent of frosting, but I want it to look like icicles. So I'll play around with that. And then I have these little Chanel stems, and they kind of look like little candy canes, and I think that's kind of cute. I have my little wrapped disc, and I want to use that as well. And I have this little green ribbon, and I was thinking I could make some kind of tree on either side here, and I think I'll start with that. I also have my little beads and things like that that I can play around with. But I want to start with those trees. So I'm just going to clip some of this grosgrain ribbon here. And I want it to be kind of reminiscent of a tree. So I'll even cut it further. And I'll set it down and just cross it on itself, getting smaller as it goes up, just like that. So I'll start it at the base of my house, just to either side of the door. I'll move it a little closer to the door here. I have my green thread, and I can stitch that in place. Again, sliding it closer to the door. I made one fold, so I'll just stitch a couple of stitches to tack it down. And then I'll come over here and stitch at the base. Again, I don't want to pull it too snug. I don't want it to fold or have a little pull in it. And then I can just continue folding that tree on my way up. So I just wanted to be reminiscent of a tree. Holding it in place, tacking it down. And then again, folding it one more time. Fold the end over, just so it ends with a little bit of a point. Hold that in place and tack it down. And then I'll tack it down right at the top of that tree. I can go through my button stash and see if I have a little button I might want to put at the top. That's kind of cute. I'll do another one on this side. Then I'll play around with my trim here. I like the way that looks coming down right from the top of the roof. I just need to make sure I leave room to put my wrapped washer right there. So I'll clip this. I have one piece, and I'll clip this on the other side. So I'll tack these down, make this other tree, use a couching stitch to tack this down. We'll come back and see what's left to create and how much to embellish. So my gingerbread house is starting to come together. I still have to stitch the text, and I want to add a few more embellishments. I found these little red buttons, and I think I'm just going to put them at the top of each tree. I think that looks kind of cute. And then I was thinking of maybe doing a candy cane, just a small one, maybe the size of the door, on either side of the house, facing outward. I kind of like that idea. I don't know, I'm thinking about that. I want to add this heart. I think I'm just going to cut it out. It's just from a piece of trim. Yeah, I think I'll put it right on the door. Don't even have to worry about a door handle. I like that contrast. Then I have these little beads that I really love, so I'm thinking about using those. I don't know if the candy cane would be too much with those, so I'll test it out and see. I have a little candy cane here. Yeah, I don't think I like that fuzz, so I'll move that off, come up with a different plan. Maybe I'll just alternate these little white beads, green beads, and these little guys here. Or maybe I'll just stick to the white. These are a little puffy, these beads, but I really like the way they look. They're small, their size, so that works for me. Oh, I like that. I think I want to do something in the window here. I have these little green ones, but I don't want to overdo it. So I'll stitch my little word here, and then I'll stitch these down and show you the result. So there, I've stitched all my little beads and little trinkets onto my page, and I have my structure all done. So now the last thing I have to do is just stitch it into my book, and that'll be complete. So that's how I completed Prompt 8, the building inspired by Christmas. It's a really fun one, and I think the possibilities really are endless. I can't believe we're already at Prompt 8, only 2 to go. So join me in the next couple of days for the remaining few prompts. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. If you'd like to join our Facebook group, where we post our work and the materials that we've gathered for our work, just look on Facebook for groups, Stitch the Season 2022. You'll be asked a single question and then you can join. Or you could post your work on Instagram and be sure to tag me or use the hashtag Stitch the Season 2022. I look forward to seeing you again.